Hey everybody, it's the Big Llama. Welcome to the Big Llama Show. It's May 4th, and you know what that is? It's Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you. May the Force be with you. And one thing I want to say is I'm really happy right now that my channel isn't monetized and I don't have millions of subscribers because I get to play Star Wars music. And even though I'm going to get a copyright strike, I don't care. It's not going to cost me anything. So I'm going to do a quick tier maker list on the Star Wars movies. I'm going to rank them for you coming up here on the show. All right. Llama, really excited. It's May the 4th. It means it's Star Wars Day. That means I'm going to do the tier maker with listing the Star Wars movies. We're going to rank them in order of the following. The top best movies: a Jedi Master. We got a level of Jedi. We got a Padawan, a Youngling, and for the really crappy movie, or the one I don't like too much, you get a rating of Jar Jar. Before we get to the tier maker list, if you like this video, give it a like and make sure you subscribe, become a member of the Llama Nation. The more subscribers that we get, the more stuff we can do with the channel. But at this point, I'm playing Star Wars music in my background. I'm doing a little bit of a Star Wars theme because even if I get a copyright strike, this channel isn't monetized yet, so guess what? I don't care. All right, let's take a look at the tier maker list. Let's get right to it. All right. So again, we're going by the level of Jedi Master, Jedi, Padawan, Younglings, and Jar Jar, and we're looking at theatrical releases. So this does not include The Mandalorian and any other types of shows. Let's start with the way that it's kind of laid out here. I'm going to start with the movies that weren't part of the saga. So we're going to look at Solo. The Solo is controversial, and for I think the Star Wars fandom just sort of backlashing, but I really enjoyed Solo. I thought it was great. I'm going to give it a Padawan. I may move it up a little bit later. I got to see how this list goes up and down. The one thing I'm a little mad about is that it doesn't continue on. There's so much more story that could be told, and the spoiler alert if you haven't seen it, the Darth Maul reveal at the end, to me, sends it to the next level of a sequel, and it deserves a sequel. I think it got unfairly the backlash, but I'll give it a Padawan. It's not bad. It's not the greatest movie ever made, but it's a damn good movie. All right. Okay, this one's tough. The next one is Rogue One. Rogue One is close to being a Jedi Master. If it wasn't for the ones I'm going to put at the Jedi Master level, it would probably be there. But I'm going to give it a Jedi rating. Rogue One is just a beautifully shot movie. Again, spoiler alert, you get attached to these characters and the characters don't make it. And the final Darth Vader reveal at the end, I mean, is the icing on the cake. And now, if I want to watch this in order, it's a perfect line, lines up perfectly with the original Star Wars: A New Hope. Okay, now there was a release of the Clone Wars, which was the animated movie that was in between parts 2 and 3. I enjoyed the Clone Wars and the Clone Wars series, but I will say this: it is in the level of the Younglings. They could have done so much more with this movie. It was animated and it did go to new places, but I would have loved to have seen it in live action. Maybe that's in the future. Who knows? Okay, now we're going to get to the controversy. We'll start with Episode 1. Okay, Episode 1, to me, it's a Padawan. It's a good movie. Although I will say that it gets unfairly bashed when it first was released. A few months after, there was some backlash. But if you rewatch it now, the movie's pretty good. The pod racing scene is one that I always put on to try to test sound bars and try to test sound equipment. And I just recently did it, and it's an amazing part. And then the only drawback I have in episode 1, they could have done a whole lot more with Darth Maul and set him up for more, but they used him very sparingly, and I think that's a part that needs to be improved. All right, so episode 1, Padawan. Okay, let's look at episode 2. Now, episode 2 is my sentimental favorite. Now, just because it's my sentimental favorite doesn't mean I'm going to rank it any higher. I thought 2 was great. I thought the themes in 2 were very interesting, but the dialogue was terrible. And there are just things that could have been improved. But again, it is my sentimental favorite because around that time, my mother had passed, and I sort of felt an emotional connection to Anakin when he lost his mother in the movie. And so it was, I've rewatched it a couple of times, and I do get the feels because that's what I was feeling at the time. But from the perspective of the movies, it's a younglings. It's not the best movie that they've put out. Okay, now let's hear episode 3. Now, episode 3, I would give it a Jedi rating. It's not a Master Jedi movie, but it's close. It's darn near close. But episode 3 to me is it's just amazing how they tie everything together. The lightsaber duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin is one for the ages and one that you could rewatch. And then I truly get choked up and feel the emotion when Anakin is angry and is yelling at Obi-Wan. I'm telling you, that scene gets me every time. I know what's going to happen, and I know what happens to him after that. But man, just something about that scene. And it's, a brotherhood that's been shattered. I mean, I could go on and on about it. Okay. So now let's move on to episode 4, Star Wars A New Hope, or the original in the series. And guys, that's easily a Jedi Master. It's the original that started it all. It's the one that you go back to and you can still rewatch it. And even though some of the other movies that followed it, have better sound effects and better, visuals, but it's still the original. It's the classic. It's the one that started it all, and therefore it gets the ranking of Jedi Master. Okay, this is one that I struggled with a little bit because it's the rare sequel that lives up to the first one, and it's Empire Strikes Back. And I'm going to give that a Jedi Master rating. The Empire Strikes Back it's a classic. I'm glad that George Lucas stepped away and let another director pick up the mantle because that movie needed that emotional depth. It needed that ending. And I know George Lucas wrote it, but the way that the emotions came out, the way that the humor and the comedy came out, just wrapped everything up in a nice bow. Introduces Lando Calrissian, and that's a plus for any movie. In Cloud City, and then Boba Fett's also introduced in the movie, and that's just an amazing piece. So again, Empire Strikes Back, to me, classic. All right, let's go to Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi, to me, does lose a little bit of its luster, and it's close to being a Padawan, but I'm going to give it a Jedi because I know what the other 3 are coming up, and they're not as strong. But Return of the Jedi, unfortunately, didn't live up to the first 2. But again, the first 2 are classics, and the first 2, had the giant cliffhanger. The Empire Strikes Back has the giant cliffhanger, and Return of the Jedi has a lot to live up to. And I think it didn't fall flat on its face, but it was too much to try to seal everything up, and I think that's what does ultimately ended the movie in this Jedi ranking. All right, now for the controversial ones, and that's the new saga. The way I look at this is that The Force Awakens is a nostalgia trip, and I'm struggling where putting in the Padawan and Jedi, but I'm going to settle on Jedi. Because it had all the elements. And I know that everyone, argues that it's a rehash of The New Hope, which I think it is. It's a beat-for-beat sort of remake or reboot, a soft reboot. But it had what you wanted as a fan. It had everything you wanted as a fan. And so you introduced new characters, likable characters. I think the character of Rey was misused as we move on in the movies. But that her performance was stellar. That movie was great, and then Harrison Ford reprising his role just makes that movie. And again, spoiler alert for those who haven't seen it. I mean, I don't know why you're watching this if you haven't seen the Star Wars movies. Han Solo's demise, to me, is one of those moments where, there's not a dry eye in that theater. For me, it's heartbreaking, and I loved it. I loved it all. So, The Force Awakens. Okay, now let's get on to The Last Jedi. It's not unfair that I would call The Last Jedi a Jar Jar, and it's a terrible movie. I will admit, though, at the time I watched it, at the time it was being released, I bought into the hype, and I was a Star Wars fan, and I loved it. The more I rewatched the movie, the more I'm a little bit upset with some of the direction. There are elements that would have made this movie amazing, and unfortunately Rian Johnson just sort of wanted to subvert expectations, as he said, and really just sort of ruined what could have been a masterpiece of a movie. Visually, it's impressive, has some of the best visuals that you'll see for a Star Wars movie, but unfortunately it fell flat, and it's due to him trying too much, trying to do too much with subverting your expectations, and unfortunately, Luke Skywalker's arc in this movie. I mean, the build-up from Force Awakens was perfect, and here we are with The Last Jedi, and Luke just throws away the lightsaber. Like, come on, that's not Luke, and that's not the way it works. So again, The Last Jedi, to me, Jar Jar. Okay, the last one is The Rise of Skywalker, and again, it's one of those that I don't understand. I think it probably should have been split into two movies. I think there was just too much that they were trying to do. But it's to me, it's the way that it ended. I know that people don't like the sort of the coincidental endings when everything just happens to come together at the end. I'm going to give it a Padawan rating. And I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. Now, again, I'm giving these ratings, and I know I'm not crapping on all of them. So the only one I'm really not that happy with is The Last Jedi. But all of these movies I've enjoyed tremendously, and I love the movies. I watch them over and over again. I'm a huge fan. But again, this is how I would rank them. Again, the Jedi Masters, the two, The New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, to me are absolute classics, cannot be touched. Between Jedi and Padawan, there's some interchangeable ones that could be in there. But Episode 3 gets the Jedi nod, Rogue One definitely. And again, Rogue One was close to being a Jedi Master, but because it doesn't touch New Hope and it doesn't touch Empire Strikes Back, it was really tough to put it in that category. I know the controversy will be The Force Awakens in my Jedi category. All right, now as far as the Padawans, it's Solo, Episode 1, and then The Rise of Skywalker. I think those are pretty solid movies. For younglings, it's Clone Wars and Episode 2. Just a lot of flaws in those. And the Jar Jar is The Last Jedi, which deservedly so. All right, so that's my tier maker. That's my list. Let me know if you agree with it. It is May the 4th, so may the Force be with you. Happy Star Wars Day. Those of you celebrating, get out there in your lightsabers and your Jedi robes and just celebrate the day and enjoy being a Star Wars fan. Enjoy the movies. Pop in a movie tonight. Watch it in its full loudness and just enjoy it. I think tonight I'm gonna pop in. I think we're gonna go with the New Hope. And just start from the very first one, the very beginning, and see, that inglorious sound on our 80-inch screen that we have here. So again, that's my list. Thank you very much for joining me. I appreciate you. Again, if you like the Star Wars music, if you like the references I'm making on here, hopefully, again, this channel isn't monetized, so I don't care. I enjoyed this particular video. I hope you did too. Again, give it a like and subscribe. Thanks for coming to the Big Llama Show. I'm the Big Llama. Peace out.